Hey, how's it going, guys? Chris here. Today we're going to be watching this Australia Heads for a Recession. It's a compilation of, I would assume, TikTok rants and such. It's from Aussie Rant. I will have his full video linked below if you want to check it out. Let's get into it.
Well, look at that. Australia is officially in a recession. Been saying it for a little while that Australia has some hard times to come. And now that we have officially been announced in a recession, now is the time to stop looking at your one source of income. Now's a really, really good opportunity to jump into something that's going to make you some extra cash.
I don't know what numbers the
Yeah, that's 100% true. I think even in a non-recession time, having multiple streams of income, you hear the stats that every millionaire has an average of 7 or 5 income streams, which I think it's a good system to get behind, as long as you're not diversifying yourself too far. Like, your main income source should be your career, right? Your main job. And then if you get a second job on top of that, how much is that affecting your main job and your progression in that job? If you're working only 8 hours a day, is it not easier to pick up an extra 2 hours at your job, if that's an option, and get the paid overtime rather than working 4 hours at a retail job or something, you know? Definitely, if you work in like a corporate role, can you do consulting or something on the side? Use your skills to, make some extra income. That's probably the easiest way to get a side income, and it's definitely going to be more profitable per hour doing it that way, right? But side incomes, it's always a good idea.
is looking at, but let me tell you, they've got it wrong this time. They've stuck the rates at 4.1%. They're acting like everything's fine. Bro, it's not fine. We're in a recession. Jobs are vanishing. 52,000 jobs disappeared last month. That's the biggest drop in over a year. I'm looking at books every single day. People are not surviving. Businesses are going backwards. Transport's going backwards. Retail's going backwards. Hospitality's going backwards. The RBA is sitting there saying, let's wait and see. But wait for what? A full-blown collapse? Inflation's already back on track. It's in the 2 to 3% band. The mission was to slow the economy. Mission accomplished. Now stop choking it. Don't let the unemployment number fool you. It doesn't show underemployment. It doesn't show the stress, the side hustles, the families barely scraping through. It doesn't show that people are getting less hours. We don't need stability. We need relief, and we need rate cuts. We need it now. Follow me. I'll break this mess down without the spin.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. That there is definitely a slowdown in hours. Like, I've moved rurally from where I used to live. I used to live in Brisbane. I moved rurally. It is a bit harder to find jobs out here, right? Like, it's tougher. And the quality of jobs that you do get, definitely there's no overtime. It's a struggle to even get your full 8 hours in. However, you're full time, so you get your 8 hours. You get paid 8 hours either way, so that's the benefit. But there is that scarcity in terms of how long is this job actually going to stay here for, which it's a good question. But there's always other options. You can always find another job. The only crappy thing is, like, how far do you have to travel for that job? That's the big question, right?
Recession. Australia's in a recession. That's my opinion. You got people with mortgages, can't pay their mortgage no more. That's what they're doing, howling. They can't pay their mortgage because the rates have gone up and prices still go up. And then you have the guys that rent these homes. They pass on the expenses to the renters. And I can just tell you, I've gone online and I see the same homes for rent over and over and over. They're not renting. And I see here in Cairns over 100 homes, single family homes, for sale. The actual amount total with townhouse and whatever else is out there, over 250. That's big. And they're not moving. Nobody's buying. Nobody's renting. The recession, you're in it.
Well, it's official.
Yeah. The renting crisis is pretty crap, and it's crap getting stuck in it, right? So I was lucky enough that I could stay at home for a good couple years, 4 or 5 years, while I was working full time, and I've saved up a good deposit. I've now moved out and I'm renting, but fuck me, rent it's just heartbreaking. Like, you're paying 600 plus a week to live in a place, and it's nothing special, right? Like, it's a good clean house, but that's about it, right? It'd be nice to have your own place, but to get into your own place, the amount of income you need to service these mortgages is insane. So yeah, rates do need to come down. However, if rates come down, like once they keep coming down, and then they're at zero, and then do they go below zero? Like, you know, Japan has, and they haven't seen economic growth in years and years. So they're probably trying to keep not pushing the rates too far down because they're trying to make sure the economy can continue growing. And at some point, I think the economy is just going to stop growing and this whole inflated market that we're in is going to pop. But that could be 20, 30 years down the line, or it could be in 2 years. So it's hard to tell, but it's a pretty crappy situation that it's in, that we're
Australia
in
has
right
just brought
now.
in the highest number of migrants ever. This is in the middle of a housing crisis, a rental crisis, and a cost of living crisis. Not to mention,
Yeah, you got to keep the economy afloat somehow, right? Fuck it.
wages are at 2008 levels, meaning that we're literally going backwards. We're in a GDP per capita recession, meaning we're actually getting poorer while the country is growing. And rental vacancy rates are at 1%. Just 10 years ago, they were at 6%. 1% is crazy. This is the major reason why life in Australia is getting harder. It's as simple as that. And it's overwhelmingly hurting young people, working class people, and the vulnerable.
Only going to get worse.
We seriously need to hit pause on immigration into Australia.
18 to 24-year-olds have about $5,000 in savings, according to new figures. So how hard would a recession hit Gen Z? Some Gen Zs do just creep into that age bracket of 25 and older, and they have about $8,000 in savings, according to Westpac. But the generation's relatively low savings compared to other age groups does mean that young people are disproportionately affected by recessions. Of course, there are...
I will say, like, I'm 24 and I definitely have a lot more than $8,000 in savings. So I think there's a lot to do with people at some point you just got to work fucking more hours, right? A 40-hour week is just not going to be enough. And however much you wish it was, it's not going to be, and it's never going to be enough unless you get into a very high-paying corporate role. But yeah, 40 hours a week is just, it's not enough. If you're doing 40 hours a week, you're scraping by unless you're in a good job. So people just need to start working more, stop spending so much on eating out. Like, eating out is after housing, you know, electricity, utilities, fuel, all of that. Eating out is the biggest waste of money, right? And it's a big portion of money that you could spend eating out every week. So if you cut that out, you could save like a good amount of money, right? But a lot of young people especially don't want to. Like, I love eating out. That's my favorite thing to do. But you just gotta, at some point, you gotta say, fuck it. You gotta cut it out for a little while, get some savings behind you, especially at a time when recessions are likely to hit very soon.
reasons for that too. Their jobs are often the first to go, and that was seen during the technical COVID recession, with the jobless rate upticking more notably among young people. Cohorts of students who graduate into a weak labour market also tend to have persistently lower employment and wages than people who graduated during better times. So the big question is, will it actually happen? Last week, Commonwealth Bank and HSBC economists put the odds of a recession at 50%.
Good afternoon, everyone. And some pretty bad news again on Australia's economy, with the GDP number coming in below expectations. And on a per capita or per person level, you've been in recession for almost 2 years now, for 7 quarters. This is the longest in Australia's history. So you could make a case that this is the worst stealth recession that Australia has ever been in, certainly in modern history. This is not good. And of course, we can't really say that interest rates are too high, because we've got the stock market hit an all-time record high yesterday, so clearly not based on fundamentals, which is something I've preached about for a long time. And real estate prices and rents are also at all-time record highs and have gone way up to the point where...
And isn't that crazy? Like, you know, what was it, like a month ago now that the tariffs started coming in and the stock market dropped, 15% or 20%. The people that didn't have savings or anything couldn't even capitalize on that 15, 20% downturn. Like me personally, I put a couple grand in. Wish I put more in. I thought it would be a little bit longer period before we got back up. But within 2 weeks or whatever it was, we're back up to all-time highs. It's crazy. The recovery fully came in, all the fears out of the market. So now we're back at the top and all the fears starting to bubble up again. So there might be another downturn, or we're going to be flat for a while. So I'm not, obviously everyone says, just consistent investing will beat time in the market. And I think that's true. But in my current position where I'm sort of looking to buy a house, I think for me, it's just, take it easy. If there is a big downturn, then I'm getting in. I've got the capital there. I'll delay buying the house if I have to. But I think, if you can get in at a 20% discount again, 30% discount, you might as well be dumping a bit of money in that.
A lot of Australians can't afford it. So the biggest household expenses at a record high price. You've got record levels of debt, which you shouldn't have if interest rates were too high. So we've got a lot of problems to deal with.
Economists are now saying that Australia has a 50% chance of going into recession this year. This is despite growing our population by 2.5% using mass migration last year alone. People used to say that the reason that we had so many migrants was because it was good for the economy, and in a way it is still keeping the economy afloat. But while it may have made the country wealthier, growing GDP, it's actually made Australians poorer. GDP per capita dropped 6% in 2023, a record, incredible drop. And now despite decades of mass migration and huge amounts of migrants, nearly 800,000 last year alone, nearly over 100,000 in 1 month this year, Australia is still about to go into a recession. It's clear that this system is not working. This high migration, low productivity system is just not working. It flattens wages, it worsens the housing crisis, it puts strains on services. It's time to switch to a Scandinavian model of a high productivity, low immigration, or we're fucked.
Recession. Australia's in a recession. That's my opinion. We got people with mortgages, and 100 homes, single-family homes, for sale.
The media. Major countries globally are likely to suffer a recession, and because the media know that fear sells, they're going to be talking about it a lot. Now, deep recessions and depressions are...
Yeah, 100%. Like, if you sign up to this, that the world's gone to shit, that's all you're going to be fed, and it's, at the end of the day, it's the thing that sells and gets views, right? So if you're going to be watching all this fear-mongering, you're going to get more of it, and then you're going to get more depressed and worried about the economy and whatever, when really you can't do anything about the economy. So you just got to focus on yourself and grow your own balances and make your own money and increase your income in any way you can. Whether it's a good time or a bad time, you should be trying to do these things no matter what to get yourself ahead and get yourself into a point where you could take advantage of a downturn in the market.
Not good for the economy or society because they can create a spiral that can get out of control. And it can take 3 to 5 years to recover from a deep recession. And this means that house price growth on average will be delayed. The good news is that Australia will narrowly avoid a recession. And even if we do suffer a slight recession, it will not be a deep recession and it will not be anything near a depression. Now, speaking of inflation, it's currently sitting at around 7 to 8%. The expectation is that towards the second half of the year, it'll actually come down to around 4%. Now, from there, the Reserve Bank says its target is to bring inflation back down to 2 to 3%. So rates are going to stay relatively where they are right now until we get back to that 2 to 3%. Now, what does this mean? It means that you can expect the cost of food, fuel, and all our basic goods and services to start going down in the second half of 2023. This means more cash in
life, that the Liberal National Coalition is better at managing the Australian economy than the Labor Party. That's what the Australian political media have conditioned you to believe. But
I think both parties are pretty crap at running a country, to be honest. There's no real good choice in it, in the matter. Like, the only problem is Labor's fucking putting in these unrealised capital gains taxes on super. So how long will it be until it's out of super? And there's no point in even making money and saving and investing. Like, if you're just going to be taxed on your capital gain, unrealised capital gains, it just kills compound growth so hard.
just like from 2007, when Kevin Rudd was elected, in 2008, Australia nearly entered a recession and was saved by the Labor Party. Fast forward to the year 2025, just under 3 years in government, and Australia's economy ends a 21-month per capita recession as GDP grows faster than the population. Labor has halved the inflation rate and interest rates have started to be cut. You need to change what you believe. Labor are better economic managers than the Dutton Coalition. Just the facts.
So our plan is to use Southeast Asia as a place to lay low while the Australian economy heads towards a recession. So this is a bit of a follow-up video to our first video on why we couldn't afford to live in Australia. The main question you guys asked was, what is our long-term plan? What is the long-term plan of traveling like this full-time as a family? Now, our plan is to stay here and lay low. And what I mean by that is essentially, I have the feeling the Australian economy is going to slowly start to head towards a recession. And you may disagree with me on that, but there's a lot of evidence that Australia is heading towards a recession. So our plan is to stay in Southeast Asia and maintain a good quality of life and just lay low until the price of Australia comes back to what Australians can actually afford when it comes to housing and food and the everyday cost of living.
See, that's a common thing, but by doing that, if somehow the cost of living doesn't get any better and it just maintains and everything keeps going up, or that gap between wages and cost of living remains the same while both wages and the cost of everything continues to go up, he's never going to be able to come back to the country. He's going to be priced out forever. So you need to understand that that's a real risk of doing this type of strategy, that you could be priced out of a country forever because you chose to run away in fear instead of increasing your income to a point where you could survive in a cost of living crisis.
That will retrace back to what Australians can afford at some point. And so the plan of attack is to just stay in Southeast Asia until that happens. And me personally, I think that's quite a good plan of attack. Even if it doesn't retrace and the economy doesn't slow down in Australia, we're still not going to be any kind of worse off because we didn't have a house anyway. We didn't really own many assets except a car, a caravan, and a boat. We can always buy them back. So worst case scenario is we stay in Asia for a couple of years, we come back with the same as what we had before, and we just start again. The best case scenario...
Yeah, but you've lost 2 or 3 years of compound growth. Obviously, life experience is you can't buy it. Like, you can't go back in time and buy them. So he's getting at least the life experiences and the lifestyle. But in that 2 or 3 year time, compound interest and compounding your wealth and income, especially, potentially he could have had that great life in Australia and then gone and travelled to Southeast Asia on holidays or lived there permanently from that 2 or 3 years of compounding. Like, it's hard to believe that in 2 or 3 years you could have enough to survive the rest of your life, which it's probably not realistic. But when you're going from a high cost of living area and you're making and saving and investing a lot of money, and then you go to a low cost of living area, there's a high disparity there. So there is a chance that he could have actually survived after that 2 or 3 years.
Is that we hang out in Asia for a couple of years, build a bit of wealth, keep our costs low and live a good quality of life. And then we go back to Australia and everything is cheaper and allows us to get back into the market and back to settling down for cheaper than what we would have done now. So that's a kind of a plan that's sort of our thoughts on the long-term sort of plan for this adventure in Southeast Asia. So what are your thoughts, guys? Do you feel like the Australian economy is heading towards a recession, or are we just crazy for doing this and we're going to come back and we're going to be worse off than we were when we left?
Is Australia nearing a recession? People are spending less money now because of rising inflation, and it's starting to have detrimental effects on our economy. Here's what you need to know. Australia's economy only grew by 0.1% over the first 3 months of 2024, and only 1.1% so far this year. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said in a press conference that this very weak growth is a result of higher interest rates, persistent inflation, and ongoing global uncertainty, although Australia is still doing better than other comparable countries. The Australian Bureau of Statistics Head of National Accounts, Catherine Keenan, told the ABC that the economy had experienced its lowest through-the-year growth since December 2020, which begs the question, is a recession on the horizon? According to Australian Psychology Accreditation Council economist Callum Pickering, population growth is the only thing standing between...
So you say that, like, you say the lowest growth since 2020, December 2020. What happened after December 2020? The housing market blew up. Like, it actually went skyrocket. And so what is, just because like we're having like a slow period now in the next year, is it going to catch back up and the people that haven't got in are going to be left behind? That's a scary thought to think about, right?
Australia and a recession. He said that the household sector is a considerable risk to Australia's economic outlook, and that an average household's disposable income has not been able to keep up with rising prices. According to the head of macroeconomic forecasting for Oxford Economics, Sean Langcake, it's not all bad news. Langcake told the ABC that we should expect an improvement in conditions over the second half of the year. However, growth is likely to remain below trend through the remainder of 2024.
If you live in Australia, there's a really good chance in the last week, 2 weeks, month, you've seen headlines like this. And if you...
Oh, yeah. So these videos are getting a bit old now, in terms of the date on them. They're getting to, your 2023, 2024, and we're in 2025. But I think the concept still stays true, right? At the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about the economy other than you should just be working on yourself and trying to improve your income, whether it's taking on side hustles or whatever. And these people were saying in 2023, 2024, we were going into a recession. Well, we're here in 2025 and it's still the same. So it's hard to predict. You never know where it's going to go. There's a lot of uncertainty and fear in the economy. So does that mean you should be fearful, potentially? Or should you be greedy and start investing and start improving your life? I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the economy's doing. You should probably be trying to improve yourself and, increase your income and your investments and your savings as much as you can. Particularly savings. If there is a recession, you want to make sure you have a good amount of savings ready to go and deploy when there are sales, as they call them. Anyway, guys, obviously I'm just some random guy on YouTube, so whatever I said is not financial advice, because I'm definitely not a financial advisor, but I think you guys are all smart enough not to take that into consideration. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.